Hello, everyone. I'm Vlad Guzman. Welcome to the Involve Me podcast, where we talk with global marketing and sales leaders around all topics, lead gen and funnel conversion optimization and all that. So today I have a very, very interesting guest joining me. Hi, EJ. Welcome to the podcast. EJ is the head of growth at Beehiiv. Hey.
Hey, Vlad, how's it going? It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Always a treat when I get to talk about growth with, a similar like-minded professional and share this information with, with the world.
It's great to have you. So EJ, we have a lot to talk about, but I want the audience to just get a sense of who you are, your background. Obviously, I've introduced you as the head of growth at Beehiiv. Maybe just a quick sentence on Beehiiv. It's one of the fastest growing email platforms for creators. I hope I did it justice with this short tagline. I think you guys hit like 8 figures in ARR in less than 5 years, if I'm right. So maybe you want to give us some insight into your path. You've been through so many stages. I know I've been talking to some of our common friends, and you've hit e-commerce and direct to consumer. I think then you moved to agency, then SaaS, back to agency, and then back to SaaS. So, what were some of these points in your journey, and why did you stick with SaaS?
Totally. So the through line makes a little bit. I can make the through line make a little bit more sense. I appreciate that intro. Happy to go through like my background and not that it matters. Our company is actually only 3 years old as a whole, so we actually hit that 10-figure mark in less than 3 years. We turned 3 back in November, and we hit that 10 million. I'm not great with numbers. I think 8 figures is 10 million. I think we hit that sometime in the fall. We're at 16 now.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. So my background, I started my career, as you said, in D2C. I had actually studied entrepreneurship and finance and accounting at University of Maryland, which is where I met our CEO. We were in the same honors program and lived next door to each other. We weren't particularly close, but we saw each other and we were in some of the same classes together. And it was in college that I really got to kind of nurture and build my love for entrepreneurship, and so was really involved in a lot of the different programs at Maryland. Maryland's got one of the top 5 actually, I think, entrepreneurship programs in the country, and just made a bunch of really great connections. So after I graduated, I was fortunate enough to get a position in like this global like Rhodes Scholar-esque program called Dubai Business Associates, and got to spend the first year of my career working for the government of Dubai, doing consulting projects, working with some of those large state-owned entities. I worked at the Dubai Technology Entrepreneurship Center, or DTEC, in their Silicon Oasis Free Zone, as well as Jumeirah Corporation. They're the ones who own like the big 7-star like Sail Hotel. From there, I came back and was kind of looking to see what was going to happen next. I'd kind of missed out on the typical recruiting cycle for many, recent grads. So it's like I had a year of experience, but it was like this weird kind of non-traditional background. Like I wasn't part of the on-campus recruiting cycle. So instead of kind of swimming upstream, I joined some buddies in helping them launch their startup called JavaZen. We won $80,000 in seed funding from Kevin Plank and Under Armour. And that was a coffee product, coffee, tea, and superfoods blended to give you energy without any of the jitters, stress, anxiety, or crash or stomach ache. We got into more than 300 stores. I was in charge of like the D2C, e-commerce, like web store and Amazon shop. Just like many startups do, they don't always work out. And so from there, I went and joined a consumer app back in Dubai for a short time. At that point in my career, I was kind of at a crossroads. I, had been part of these 2 different startups. I had got great metrics, but it just didn't work out. And so I was like considering going back. Maybe like, do I choose, do I try to go back to like, financial services, or do I kind of double down on this career of digital marketing that I'd kind of started? And so I doubled down. I started looking for agency opportunities. I really wanted to stop kind of hacking things together and really learn, kind of shorten that, learning curve by learning from people who had been there and done that before. And I was very fortunate to find an agency, back in my hometown around Baltimore called Web Mechanics. They just got acquired by another agency. They're some of the best in the business. They merged and, are having a ton of success now. And every day, the skills that I learned with that team are the ones that I apply building this company. I thank them every day for what they taught me. And so I was there for about 2 years before getting poached by another med tech startup that was looking for a turnaround. Joined them, was able to double sales in a year. And then coming into the pandemic, everything started going remote. So I traded in an hour and a half long commute for working from home, working in my garden, walking my dog, and working for an agency based in Brooklyn. So I was, I had a background in analytics and media buying, and so I was a very early person on their media buying team and kind of got that marquee, like Madison Avenue, big advertising, advertising agency experience. And it was there that I was working where Tyler, found me when he was looking for somebody to run growth. So he had posted on LinkedIn, and as you do, you follow your classmates from undergrad, and I was very impressed with what he had done by Morning Brew. He had gone to work for Google, and I was kind of itching to get back in the startup space. So, the industries have kind of switched, but really the through line is startups and agencies. I started on the startup side because I love entrepreneurship, and then realized agencies are, one, if not the best place to really learn marketing at a very deep level, because you get to see so many different challenges, you get to see so many different problems, industries. Obviously, not all agencies are built the same, but the ones I worked at, allowed to gave you a great deal of autonomy and freedom to, lead and deploy strategies and really own the client relationship. And so was really able to learn a ton during that time that, served me today and set me up for success. So in that way, working with startups, working in the agency world gave me a lot of skills around, interfacing with, top decision makers in a company, being able to feel comfortable in that room and be able to kind of know how to talk to these people. And of course, in a startup experience where you are very early, that's very, very beneficial. So, each of these experiences kind of just built on top of the next, and just picked up and collected all of these experiences from D2C and e-com to, apps, direct-to-consumer apps. And, at both of the agencies, I worked across, a wide variety of companies. The bread and butter of that first agency was B2B lead gen. So got a great education in that, but also I was the point person for basically all of the e-com and more D2C clients, which there weren't that many. Out of about 80 clients, about 10 of them, but I own that book of business. And so, was able to get kind of a very, very broad but robust experience. The thing that they teach is, at that agency, is basically building a T-shaped marketer. So someone who is, is competent across a wide variety of things, and then, basically letting you choose your own adventure to go really, really deep in specific areas. And so the areas I went deep in, I went very quickly into the client service and strategy side, but I went really, really deep on the analytics and paid media. So between those two, obviously in today's world, paid media is run by data. And if you can understand the numbers, you don't have to be a very talented creative marketer to be successful. And so that's really kind of the intersection that has led to my success. For the first year of Beehiiv, we didn't run any paid marketing, but I really got the analytics tight. And I promised Tyler when I joined, it's I'm not going to be the marketer who's going to deploy kind of the one trick pony, Alex Hormozy style growth hack that's just going to go 0 to 1,000, but then not know what to do next. I'm going to basically lay the foundation for sustainable growth. You're never going to raise money or have somebody come to you and say, hey, this worked, but you have to rip and replace all of this because it doesn't work. I'm going to be the person who can build the growth engine from today that's going to basically power us through, wherever we want to go. And that was a compelling pitch, and that's what we've executed on so far.
Awesome, AJ. An inspiring path so far. I'd like to dive deeper into your current stop and the responsibilities that you have in your role and the likes. I'd just like to say before that, the point, to your point, that a stop at an agency makes a ton of sense if other listeners out there are looking to sort of emulate your career path. That's a good takeaway. And I can also double down on that and say, for us, it involved me. We started off as an agency, so it also there are tons of startups out there, SaaS businesses that have been started as an agency, because it gives you the deep vertical knowledge into an ICP, and you can really build on top of servicing a customer directly and create a product out of that.
Real quick.
Sure.
So the second agency I worked with, we actually are now a client of theirs. They're a vendor of ours, and basically the product that we buy from them now was a a service basically that we provided to Fortune 100 companies that they then productized, and now are basically the agency itself also got bought this year. Both the agencies I worked for got acquired this year, but they spun off this basically SaaS product from the incubation of the agency. And so what I want to add to your audience is, if you are a young person who's looking to like build something or kind of get out there, the playbook I would run if I were going back might look something like, figure out what I'm good at in terms of marketing, in terms of the digital space. Am I a good writer? Am I a good content creator? Am I good at ads? Am I good at whatever? Start an agency so that you have the cash flow, so that you're making some money. Learn how to sell, learn how to pitch yourself, learn how to market, sell that service to the clients so you have cash flow, and then just use that experience to understand what problems those clients are facing from a very, very intimate first-person perspective. One of the things that I found when I was in college and like wanting to build something and wanting to kind of have this experience, it's like, the college kids who start Facebook are, the exception to the rule. Most people who start companies tend to be older. I think the average age is in their 40s, and it's because a lot of times the real problems that people are willing to pay for, that aren't just shiny objects that no one's going to pay for, can only really be seen from the inside out. And so I don't know, might be how something like Involve Me came to be, where it's like you just see this work, you're creating interactive experiences day in and day out. You see all of these clients want this service, and you're like, wait a second, what if we just productize this so that anybody could buy it and deploy it on their own? I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know if that's how it started, but I would imagine it probably, with you shaking your head, probably looks something similar to that. But that would basically give you kind of that shortcut where you can learn how to sell, which is probably the number one thing if you're trying to start a company. You start making money, which is like the next most important thing. And then, that will allow you to bootstrap and really give you that best footing for success, because you'll see the problems that real people have, that real people are willing to pay for. And then you can test it out. Even if you don't have like the team to build a productized, version of the service, you can say, hey, like, I see all these people have this problem, just add that as a service line. And if it's something that people are willing to pay for, then turn it into a product. It's just like, almost like training wheels. But if you're somebody who's starting out who doesn't necessarily know what they wanted to build, it's kind of similar to me. I was just like, I know I want to be an entrepreneur. I know I want to work for myself and do my own thing. But like the kiss of death that I see with people is like having that feeling and then just latching onto like the first idea that seems novel and just building that, because it's like, I don't know what else to build. So I'm going to build this thing that feels novel, that, is just allows me to kind of play in this space.
Yeah, so. No, I completely agree. That's great advice. I think that's the path to validation is pretty straightforward in such a case. And so let's look a bit at Beehiiv, right? I mean, I try to sort of explain it in a sentence, but maybe to give you a bit of room to expand on that. I think it's interesting, before we get into talks around your strategies around lead gen and how the way you build funnels and all of that, to understand what is Beehiiv, who is it for, just lay it out for us a bit.
Yeah. So if you go to our homepage, you might get the variation of our testing that says Beehiiv is the newsletter platform built for growth. That tagline has been very salient. Lately, I've been testing out. I was at a party, and it's ironic, as the nominal head of marketing. I'm a head of growth, but I'm like the top marketer at our company. We just don't have anybody above that, and we're still very much in growth mode. I was very candid with someone. It's like, I feel like I do a terrible job explaining what Beehiiv is when I'm in front of a person. Like, I actually really appreciate the guardrails of like digital media, where it's like you have to explain it in just very concise terms, because when I'm in front of someone, I know too much, and I just try to start explaining, like over-explaining. And so I did that kind of process and explained to them kind of my insecurity in that way. And they said, sounds like Beehiiv is like Canva for newsletters. And I was like, that's not too bad. It's like, we basically very, very powerful platform for publishing, powerful, dynamic, engaging, performing emails. The use case that I would say is, if you wanted to start a newsletter, if you wanted to start the Morning Brew or the Skim or, Axios Daily or the Hustle, back pre-Beehiiv, you'd have to, raise some money, because these tools cost quite a bit. You'd have to basically hire a team. You'd have to have writers. You'd probably have an engineer or two. you'd basically have to make this pretty large investment, and then you'd have to have designers, all this stuff. And then you basically be using these out-of-the-box tools that aren't meant for your use case to start publishing. And yes, you can do it, but as we saw from Morning Brew, they raised millions of dollars, built out an entire dev team, to kind of achieve all this. And so our founder, Tyler Dank, who came from the second employee at Morning Brew, basically with these resources built a very, very powerful, dynamic, engaging, world-class newsletter, and would have people come to him and say, hey, who are you using for your email platform? Like, who are you sending with? Or I saw you guys introduce this new feature. What tool are you using? And he'd say, we built that ourselves. So, like, we didn't do it off the shelf. And so he got that question enough that at some point he realized there's something there where people would be willing, in this space, would be willing to pay for a solution that out of the box basically provide these bespoke tools for newsletter publishers. And so when we talk about who we compete with and like what our product is, we play in a space with companies like MailerLite and Constant Contact and MailChimp, Marigold companies, all of these like traditional email senders. And so we kind of broadly classify ourselves as an ESP or email service provider. But truly, when it comes down to it, we are very, very narrowly focused on this vertical of creators. And unlike some companies like MailChimp that goes very broad, servicing pretty much all industries, but like at an SME level, we go very vertical. We're kind of vertically integrated where we can serve a solopreneur who's starting a side hustle. We can also serve Time Magazine, which is one of our clients, and everybody in between. Mm-hmm. But we know that our space is very, very focused on this like creator, editorial, content-focused like newsletter idea. We don't do transactional email. We don't do marketing automation. We do have some automations in the platform, but they're centrally, they're very flexible, but like the workflows are built around supporting kind of a newsletter business or a content-based business. So it's like we don't try to compete with Klaviyo for Shopify business. If you're a Shopify company and you want a little bit more robustness in running a newsletter, we can certainly serve you. But if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I have Klaviyo, I have Shopify, I want to replace Klaviyo with you guys for all of my stuff, and I will literally tell people like, don't do that. Like Klaviyo is great money to spend in that case. So yeah, we know who we are, we know who we service, and it's that kind of what I thought originally before I started joining the company was kind of a very small audience, and turns out it's quite robust and growing very, very rapidly. Where we go, we're actually launching a web builder to complement the email side of the business in March. It's in beta right now. But this is a tool that's going to compete with tools like Webflow and Wix and Card, and basically very, very flexible from scratch website builder. And so really where we're going, not that you didn't ask this, but I'll add this, where we're going is basically to be kind of this operating system for content or digital businesses. So where Shopify is like the place to go because they have the best infrastructure out of the box, kind of all the things you need to service digital or e-com, like physical products. We want to be, and we are becoming the place where if you want to deploy link in bio and you want to run ads on your content and you want to own your audience and not be up to the whims of these algorithms where platforms are being bought and sold and kind of engagements waiting. Nobody's a gatekeeper between you and your email subscriber. And we have a bunch of other cool things that we're rolling out later this year. Digital product sales, courses on the roadmap. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming out that will basically make Beehiiv the place to be, and basically simplify your tech stack in the process.
That's great. So, I mean, look, I've been looking forward to this conversation because an exciting thing for me is to talk to somebody else who's in a really crowded market and who's sort of successfully finding the right waves in a red ocean. So maybe to go into the real concrete stuff. So you said it yourself, 3 years. That's such a short time span for you to grow something from scratch to over 10 million in ARR. So what do you think the core strategies have been for you guys? What was pivotal in this crowded environment to get Beehiiv to stand out?
So the first is not knowing kind of the challenge of building something that quickly. Having not come from a traditional SaaS background, I have know, I still really don't have a great concept of like what is considered quick or slow or fast or big or small. It's like my only context is what I've seen with Beehiiv, and so that helps you kind of be a dreamer. There's no preconceived notions of like we're going too quick, we're going too slow. Tyler has always come to me and just, we could have our best month ever, and it's like, rent's still due next month. How are we growing another 20%? And that's always been the mindset, and that's been really, really helpful. Concretely, there's several different things. So the first thing before we started, like when we first launched, a lot of it has to do with like the MVP and the validation. So when we launched, we had a very we had a product that did not have a whole lot of features. We basically launched with the referral program and a very, very simple interface for drafting and formatting and sending email newsletters. And so a lot of our success actually has to do, I'd say, with all of our success has to do with the leadership that Tyler has displayed, but a lot of it tactically has had to do with the kind of approach that we've taken to coming to market, as you alluded to. So when we launched, we had this very simple product with kind of one differentiating feature, which was that referral program. At the time, no other tool had a referral program built in. Usually you'd have to pay like $20 or $30 a month at minimum to basically bolt that on. And so essentially, we found a bunch of early adopters through Tyler's networking and his background with Morning Brew, who didn't really care about the bells and whistles. So folks like Sean Purry from Milk Road, who are just fundamental executors. They just do the work. They don't say, hey, I don't have this bell or this whistle, so I'm going to wait till tomorrow to do it. They just do it. They get it done. They get it out, and they just get the work done. And so those were our early adopters, the people who just wanted a place where they could just go and write, have it look clean, and not really need all of the different, like I said, bells and whistles. So when we launched, that's what we delivered on. We had a solid product that did that and delivered on that promise. And then came the actual strategy, or the kind of the strategy that continues today. Our pace of development is incredibly quick and is very consistent. And so this actually has nothing to do with me, but it is central to the growth strategy in that we had that core group of early adopters. In the meantime, we also had people who were like, I would love to switch, I would love to start with Beehiiv, but I need feature X. And so then we would go and build feature X. So then, and we're releasing these features every 2 weeks, like clockwork, every 2 weeks for 38 months. Basically, we build feature X. We can then go back to that early person and say, hey, we now have this feature, and they're moving on to the platform. Our original cohort is like, holy cow, this is a great feature. I didn't know I needed this, or I didn't know I wanted this, or I didn't know this would help me that much, but this is amazing. I love this platform. I'm going to go share about it on social. So then 2 more weeks go by. We add another feature. We're able to add more people to the platform who were kind of waiting in the wings. And then those first 2 cohorts of people are like, wow, this is incredible. The pace of development is so quick. This feature is amazing. Just what I needed to, do my job even better. Then both cohorts, again, are sharing their experience, sharing by word of mouth again. And so just rinse and repeat that process with just growing numbers of users over 38 months. And that's the recipe for this like exponential growth that we've seen, just surprising and delighting users. And as I said, for the first, I think 18 months or so, we didn't spend $1 on paid acquisition. And that includes like brand deals and stuff like that. We literally just shipped features and made my job a little tough. In the beginning, I was like, I'd never grown anything completely organically. I was kind of had this background in paid advertising. I had this very solid like foundation across everything, but I'd never been in the hot seat to basically be like, okay, you got to put the team on your back, and you're not using ads to do it. And so the key things there were really putting on like a product head. So if you've read, Hacking Growth. I hadn't read Hacking Growth until about 3 months ago. But if you read that book, that's the exact playbook that we took. So as a growth organization, like me as a growth person, I was in the product every day. I was the only person at the time when we had 7 people who was working and using all of the features. The engineers are building their specific things, but Tyler's out, running the business and managing, our growth and managing fundraising and whatnot and selling and stuff like that. Nobody was really using the platform from beginning to end in the way to be able to say, okay, cool, we built this feature and we built this feature. How can these combine to like synergistically create value? Or if we're releasing a new feature, I was familiar with most of the tools on the market. So I'd be like, we'd put something out in a beta version or like in a staging environment, and I would test it. I'd say, hey, like I clicked this button expecting X to happen and it didn't happen, or something different happened. We need to fix that because that's going to be very confusing to the user. Or, we built this feature to spec, but like if we release this feature as is, it's going to look very weak or not competitive compared to what users are expecting coming from other tools. And so we would basically ship a fast follow to that. And so that was really, really valuable because that allowed us to basically build things that when people got their hands on it, it was going to work, as expected and do what they want, which is like the classic, like kind of growth. What they actually kind of talk about in that book is like the growth levers of like, how are users going to use this? How are you going to surprise and delight them? And then on top of that was, as kind of basic as it sounds, I literally would just get in front of the screen with a screen recording tool, and I would just do tutorials. I would do not demos so much, but I would do tutorials of all of these different features. And so I think before I handed it off, we hired someone who's like so much better. If you go to our YouTube channel, Steven Van is like consummate professional. He's amazing. But prior to him, I think I did over 100 of these tutorials, just me in front of my screen with like Loom and then chopping down the Loom videos, with the trim tool, and just showing people how to use these things. And then, following people on Instagram, at the time it was Twitter, people would be reaching out, be like, I just watched, 40 of your videos at a time. I've been listening to your voice for hours and hours and hours. And I'm like, oh my God, like, one, I'm so sorry. But two, like, that's like, there's something super humbling about that. And like, really, really, it wasn't really incredible. But that was so valuable for those users, because what we realized, I tell people this, growth at a startup at that stage is very much like in the US, there's this concept called the Interstate Commerce Clause, which has been, it's a concept of our Constitution that has been very, very broadly interpreted to say, like, if anything impacts interstate commerce, then like it can be regulated by the federal government. So it's been taken to like expand to saying, like, if two people are selling corn within the same state, that's going to affect the market for somebody buying corn from a different state, even though the transaction is happening in one place. That affects the market more broadly, and so it can be regulated by the federal government. And so a little bit of a civics lesson, but my point there being like, within a startup of that size, like growth really just means anything that touches anything related to growth. And that was really kind of was my mandate. So if it was product related, if I could say, hey, if we fix this issue, we can sell more product, or it's going to, this is a problem that's causing people to not have a great experience, meaning that they're not going to continue using the product, meaning they're not going to purchase. That was my mandate to say, hey, like engineering, we need to fix this. Or, tutorials, it's like, I'm just thinking through the logical process of like, how do we get people using the product and continuing to stay active and then upgrading? Well, if they know how to use the product and they can see how easy it is to use, they're more likely to stick around and they're more likely to pay. So tutorials, I would jump into support tickets. If like they're having a problem, if we don't answer them quickly, then they're less likely, they're going to have a bad, a less good, representation of the company. And so they're less likely to pay. So like I was looped into all the pings on support, and so at that early stage, literally anything that was related to like the customer experience was not, was fair game. And, as a kind of a career startup person, I was very comfortable wearing all those hats, and it was almost like kind of expected. I knew what I was getting into in kind of that way. But all of that together was like really, really critical for those very, very early days.
How big were you at that time? Like how many people were in the organization?
Yeah, so when I started, I was the first employee. So there was 4 of us then, and then I beat out our first engineer by about a week. So I don't know how he feels about this if he ever sees these, because I really tout like the first employee thing. It's a badge for me as a growth person, a marketing person, to be that first hire, and I think that's something that makes a difference when we tell the story. But I beat out the first engineer. Our 2 of our co-founders were also engineers, but
right.
He joined about a week after. So like very quickly we were at like 5, 6, 7, I think. By May, so I started in February. By May we were at 7. And then the following May we had 17, and then this past May we were up to like 80-ish.
Wow.
So yeah, we raised our Series A in July of 2023, and then we raised our Series B in March of 2024. So
Did you bootstrap until a certain stage, or was it a pre-seed kind of?
yeah. So my understanding is that Tyler and the team pre-launch were working on the platform for about a year. Had raised some seed funds, so I think it was like 1.2 million seed funding, and then 2.6 or sorry, 1.2 or so pre-seed, 2.6 for the part A of our seed round, and then we actually did like a seed extension after I joined, which was like another 1.6. So our seed was like, I think the official number is like 4.2, and then our Series A was I think 12 or 13 that July, and then our Series B was 33.
Well, congrats to you guys. So
So
that's
to answer your question, not bootstrapping at all.
not bootstrapping at all.
We're going for the top. We're trying to knock down, the convert kits and not the convert. We're trying to knock down the Mailchimps and the Substacks, that are very well funded, have these big audiences, and so we wanted to have this war chest. Both times we've raised, except for the seed rounds, both times that we've raised, we've been basically break even. And so if I can give advice to founders, like if you are going to raise, like focus on revenue from like day one, because that'll solve many of your problems. We've never had a problem raising. It's more been, not so much can we raise or how quickly can we raise. It's really been raising on our terms with competing term sheets, which has given us not just control in the negotiating room, but also very favorable terms in terms of control and whatnot. So, and that's just because it's like we can show, okay, in a month, we could fund ourselves from our own revenue. And so if you want to be part of this, we're going to build a 100x company, but like, what can you do for us?
Nice. That's great advice. So just to bring it back, the first phase was organic. What I want to get into is when did you start diversifying? In terms of the activities in your stack, and also maybe to start sort of visualizing how the funnel looks like for you guys. Like when a visitor lands, where do they land? What do you do at pivotal touch points in the funnel?
Yeah, sure. So we for the first year or so were growing completely organically. So what that involved was just posting a lot on social media and engaging users on Twitter. So everyone on the team was extremely responsive on Twitter. I had a tweet deck set up that every single either mention or misspelling of Beehiiv like showed up, and every day the first thing I would do each day was go through and like and comment, or if it was a negative kind of complaint or something, respond to every single mention of Beehiiv. And I have since, unfortunately, just the volume prevents me from doing that these days, but we have 70 employees, and I think 30 or 40 of them are part of our verified org on Twitter and engage, or on X, I guess, as we have to call it these days, engage. And that's just on X. We have now people on LinkedIn. Our sales team are freaking killers on LinkedIn. They're like, every day is a masterclass on social selling. And so our social media game has been an incredibly integral part of the overall strategy. About a year in, we got to the point where we said, okay, great, let's we reached parity with our product with other tools. And so we were like, okay, now that we're at parity, we feel like we're in a much stronger place to be able to then take paid money or take paid and put ads in front of people that would get them onto the platform, and we'd be competitive with these other tools. And so we started with Google search ads, basically targeting things that were very, very tightly relevant to what our audience was, looking for. So I know our competitors watch everything that we do, and they literally copy some of our stuff like word for word. So I don't want to say the exact searches, but because they're still very, very profitable for us. But that was like kind of where we started, and then from there it was a process of either using experience to know where to place media or testing. So from there we expanded to social media and started doing more demand gen rather than direct response, doing a little bit of direct response in terms of retargeting visitors who hadn't converted and whatnot. But for that first year and a half of running paid, we were really just running people to the homepage. We were not doing anything that was particularly sophisticated, I would say. Like a lot of it was, first of all, we were a growth team of one until our Series B. So for the first like 2.5 years. I had a social media person who was running our socials, and then we brought on one of my colleagues, TG, to basically run the partner program and SEO stuff. So technically, the marketing team was three, and then I was running all of the paid media and leading the team and doing all of our like analytics and marketing automation. And so from 2023, the start of 2023, we had been working with, halfway through 2022, we brought on TG. And so his mandate was initially to stand up our SEO operation. So we realized, okay, we're 6 months into this company. We need to start investing in search engine optimization. And so our perspective, there's like obviously competing perspectives on like what the keys are. Ours is publishing and volume and quality. So like we have a very, very fast, very rapid publishing frequency. We publish 1 to 2 articles a day, 1,500 to 2,000 human research, human written words. And we've been doing that for 24 months was in November. So about 28 months now. I think our backlog or archive now is like reaching close to 1,000. We're about a third of the way to having the coverage that our competitors have. So it's still very much an ongoing thing. But yeah, so we were like, okay, we're going to invest in SEO and start building that organic moat so that we can start bringing people, in just passively and kind of expanding, our footprint there. And then the other big thing was we started running an affiliate program, a partner program. So our word of mouth, we noticed that our word of mouth was very, very strong, that, we'd had so much success on social with people sharing just the platform organically, that we made the bet that if we compensated people for that, that would become a huge growth channel, and that contributes to about 14% of revenue, which is best in class across even huge companies. So that's been going really, really well. And then so we started paid in 2023, in a very basic kind of just sending people to the homepage. Our marketing automation lifecycle marketing was something that we really started investing in from day one. One of our advisors had advised Tyler to bring on Customer IO as like our marketing automation tool. So I inherited it, have since come to love it. We work very closely with their team. They have a great product. And so that was the other part. So obviously we did the tutorials, we did social, but like marketing automation was absolutely crucial so that, I'm kind of like in people's inbox, kind of in their ear at every touch point along the journey, from registration to onboarding to activation to conversion to evangelism or retention. That's kind of how we break down that funnel. You asked about the funnel. Like that's how we view kind of when somebody comes in. Prior to that is the classic like driving awareness, consideration, and then conversion, and then through that funnel that I just mentioned. Yeah, so those are all the parts, but again, there's no one silver bullet. We're very diversified, and the through line is that we just do everything with a great sense of integrity and excellence, and attention to detail, and we just do the fundamental things really, really well, because we know what they are. It's like we are, from my marketing kind of philosophy, actually, I've been developing it recently to share with the team. So this is like the first time I've actually shared it, but like we have this kind of what's it called, framework called Inbox, which is like obviously related to what we do as a company, but it's stands for influence, nurture, build, optimize, and execute. And so roughly in that order are kind of the keys to success. If we can influence people and just like kind of build our influence and build our awareness, that leads to people hearing about us and considering us. We nurture those relationships once they've heard about us, through all of the content that we're putting out, showing that we're authorities in the space, building these experiences, building these great things, building a great product that surprise and delight people as it comes to our ads, as it comes to those experiencing, optimizing those, figuring out, understanding the data very, very tightly around them. And then, of course, like all of this comes together. You have to execute in order to make all of that happen. And so, that's like, I don't know. It's a little contrived, obviously, from I basically came up with this. I was like, asked ChatGPT for like an acronym for it, and then it came up with it. I was like, wait, that actually aligns super tightly with like kind of how we view everything. And so, EJ,
I'm curious if you zone in on on the part where you have traffic, you have an audience, you have visitors on different landing pages. Are there any specific tactics, strategies that you employ to turn those visitors into leads or signups, or thinking about? I know you guys are looking into maybe lead magnets. I know you guys run webinars, for instance. So maybe you can dive a bit deeper into that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think this is actually a really, really solid, like chronological, like unpacking of the strategy, because it's like the way that we're talking about this is very much organically how things unfolded, and so absolutely. So I'd say early last year, like May, June, we had just gone through like a pricing update, and in the wake of that, growth has never been flat, but it was kind of starting to flatten and plateau a little bit, and obviously that's something that we wanted to avoid. And so I'd said up until this point, we had been really just running traffic straight to our home pages and whatnot. I had brought in two folks to help support me on the growth team, and so one of them took on the paid media operations, and the other guy took on the marketing automation stuff. And so we probably brought them on too late. I probably should have asked for help sooner because it was transformative. As soon as I was able to like kind of get out of the weeds, and I think it was valuable to have been in the weeds for so long. But as soon as I was able to get out of the weeds, we were able to kind of take this broader, expansive look at growth and marketing as a function. And so what I realized was like, okay, great. We're doing all of these great fundamental things really, really well. We need to now think more strategically. And in order to do that, one of those things is like sending traffic to the homepage, regardless of their qualification, is not tenable if we want to continue to grow at the pace we want to grow. And in fact, I think this is really the key to kind of that really, really strong, growth and turning the dial, like being able to like call our shot and be able to, execute on a plan that we can basically at will choose to grow. And so what we started to do was outlining some methods for actually going through a more of a traditional process of lead gen to sign up to purchase. And so since that time, we've developed a bunch of different things. So one, very, very simple, but like we deployed a pop-up tool, getting people who are visiting the site, there's like a pop-up that says, hey, like, would you like to start your trial? And just kind of interrupts that experience. Pop-ups obviously get some bad rep, but like done, politely and smartly are one of the most useful things, and just it's one of those things that we had never really needed or thought about before. Not thought about, I obviously thought about it, but like just hadn't really executed on. But we added that, so that was very simple but huge. And then beyond that, we basically started doing a couple different things, offering on-demand demos of the product through a tool called Supa Demo. Shout out Joseph, I think it's Joseph Lee, founder of Supa Demo. It's basically this product that you can, it's almost like you do like a product walkthrough, and it turns it into you just with your browser go through like a product walkthrough, and it turns it into a demo that's got like voiceovers and like zoom ins and stuff like that. Really, really, very effective. And it allowed us to basically scale that vertical of like, okay, you come into the platform, you may have heard of Beehiiv, but you're not really sure what we have to offer. You don't want to necessarily start a trial, so typically you would just bounce otherwise. And so we gave this channel to basically say, hey, like, give us some information. What are your goals? Like, what type of user are you, et cetera. And then we gave them like this interactive demo, and at the end of it, they have the option to upgrade. So both running ads to that as well as just placing it across the site, organically, huge. So we have pop-up demos. Webinars have been huge. I'll get into that in a second because that's like kind of one of the central ones. But we have lead magnets. Classic lead magnets were actually the last ones that we added, but have been really, really fantastic. And that's when we talk about turning the dial. It's one of those things where it's like, if anybody comes to me and says, hey, we want to target this audience, or we want to expand to this audience, it's like webinars, lead magnets, and the third one, which I could talk about in a second, are all these ways that we can build these experiences and really call our shot. It's like, we just need to do some research on like what's compelling to these different audiences, build the experience, and then we can run ads. We can do whatever we want to bring those users in. And the fifth one, so pop-up, lead magnets, demos, webinars. The fifth one is quizzes and like interactive experiences. So we built our own infrastructure for deploying like quizzes where you can basically go through and answer a couple different questions and get some results. And then the other one would be these calculators where you enter some metrics and we basically show you like what the potential could be. And so
Use them as a qualifying tool, basically,
yeah,
and a gateway towards sign up, right?
Yep, exactly. So we can see, okay, if you put in, if you want to say, how much could I make with premium subscriptions? If you put in that you have 120,000 subscribers, that's a sales opportunity. Instead of getting redirected to self-serve, you're going to get fed into a sales motion. And likewise, and kind of, everything in between. So all of this stuff is collecting data that is not only helping the user get a better experience and a better product, but it's also doing it in a way that like allows us to kind of identify and learn more about them. And so yeah, webinars have been probably the most effective way we've been able to do this, in that we run, I think, up to 5 a week. Our ad team runs one, our partner team runs one, our affiliate program, they run one, and then I run typically 3. So I run like a growth one on Tuesdays, I run a partner one on Thursdays, where it's like we bring in somebody to speak. Would love to have you if you want to come in and do a presentation about how Involve Me can be great for like qualifying, providing like a lead magnet experience for newsletters. That could be amazing. It's actually how I heard about Involve Me. I'm pretty sure like one of our clients like uses you guys for lead magnets and stuff. So
awesome. Would love to.
Yeah, let's get on the calendar.
Look, I want to before you go, I get a sense we can talk about these things for hours. How does AI change what you do?
Yeah, so AI has been transformative for us specifically. We're a very small team compared to our competitors, and we've operated very, very leanly throughout our entire history. It's like when somebody's working at 120% is like that's when we start looking for someone to bring on like a role to like help them or to replace them. So not replace them. I did not mean replace them. I mean like when somebody's like doing like another role, it's like, hey, I'm doing growth, but I'm also doing support. And when the support stuff starts taking up like too much of my time, where I like the rest of my responsibilities are slipping, that's when we like went and be like, okay, we need somebody to take on support. And so AI has been incredibly helpful in order to kind of expand the capacity of individuals. My personal experience has been like, I've said for a long time we were a marketing team of like 1, or like technically like up to 3, but like in terms of like the outward growth stuff, like just 1. I used AI as like a junior employee and as like a senior report. So as the top marketer in the company, Tyler is amazing. He's got a great marketing mind, but on technical things, like I don't really have anyone to go to. And so similarly, I didn't have a junior marketer that I could hand off kind of the rote boilerplate stuff. And so I would use AI to say, hey, we're writing this email campaign, like write me the series, like these are the constraints, like this is the audience or whatever. And it would get like 80% of the way there. And then I could just spend the 100% of my time making that last 20% perfect. Whereas prior to AI, either I'd have to have an employee who would basically I'd assign that to, or I would have to spend like 80% of my energy getting it 80% of the way there, and then kind of just be burnt from like looking at the same stuff when the actual important part comes to actually polish and make it, exceptional. And so that's like how it's worked kind of going down, and then going up. What I'll do is like, I'll create, GPTs or whatever of like, these are the constraints, this is the audience, these are everything that we're considering about this campaign, critique it, and like, what am I missing? Like, what could be done better? And like, from my perspective, it's really, really helpful because a lot of times I think about things because I'm so close to the marketing, that is not necessarily as accessible to other people in the org or to people who might be coming to this, from without as much context.
Listen, AJ, extremely insightful. I know you got to run. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope we can do a part 2. I'll hold you up to it. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much. Talk soon. Bye.
Talk soon.